Today I want to talk to you about anxiety, a very specific anxiety called climate anxiety. It's actually becoming a thing these days. People are so concerned about climate change that it's giving them anxiety and panic attacks. So some of you may exactly have this problem. You're consumed with concern about what's happening to Mother Earth and whether we're going to destroy the planet, which is a very real possibility, and what you can do about it. And sometimes people are paralyzed by fear. So they don't know what to do, they don't know where to turn. So first of all, let me talk a little bit about anxiety in general. So with anxiety, you go into your sympathetic nervous system to overdrive. You go into fight or flight. So your body makes lots of adrenaline. This makes you anxious, and you start getting these bodily symptoms of anxiety. So maybe your heart starts to beat rapidly, and you're maybe short of breath. You're taking rapid, shallow breaths. Your pupils narrow to get ready to run away, and blood is diverted away from your gut and digestion into your muscles so you can get ready to run or fight. And so that cycle builds and builds. So you start having the anxious thoughts. Maybe you've read something in the news on the internet, or you've heard the news on TV, and it's really making you anxious. So you have those anxious thoughts, then you start to get the bodily symptoms. And when you start getting those bodily symptoms, your brain then recognizes danger, and it starts to get more anxious because your body's sending messages to your brain saying, danger, danger, we've got to do something. And so it then becomes a cycle that you can't get out of, and it just keeps going on. Thoughts, bodily feelings, thoughts, bodily feelings, worse and worse. Now, what can happen is you can end up then with a panic attack. So the cycle then just gets to the stage where you can't think. Your cognitive thinking of your brain is switched off to allow your emotions, your subconscious brain, your reptilian brain to react, because it reacts much quicker than your thinking brain. So we see this in sports and athletes, where very successful athletes now get into a state of flow. You may have heard this before, in a state of flow where your thinking brain is switched off and you rely on your subconscious brain, which can make decisions much, much quicker and is in touch with your environment much more through your senses. So your sight, smell, sound, taste, and your sixth sense, your intuition. This can all work much quicker and make much better decisions than your thinking brain, especially in a rapidly developing situation. So a lot of athletes actually practice this, turning off their thinking brain and letting their subconscious take control and make decisions for them. However, in anxiety, that kind of works against you a bit, because it can run out of control and you can have a panic attack. The other option that can sometimes happen instead of a panic attack is you have a freeze. And this often comes from the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is a big long nerve that comes from our brain down into your gut and back again. It's a very strong nerve, and it communicates the gut and the heart and the brain together. And you've got two parts of the vagus nerve. You've got the ventral and the dorsal, the anterior and the posterior. And these nerves are very ancient. They've been around, for a long, long time as we've been developing. And so they've been developed to help us. So the anterior vagus is all about socializing and connection, feeling relaxed and happy and wanting to interact with people. The dorsal vagus nerve is all about safety, and it will be activated if we in a very dangerous position. And that's all about freezing. So there's a lot of animals who use freeze as a defense mechanism. So we have 3 options. We can run away. That's the flight. We can stand and prepare to fight off the predator. And then the third option is this dorsal vagus nerve, which is to freeze and play dead. So some people find that when they get really anxious, this is what happens. They just freeze. The brain freezes. Their cognitive thinking is switched off. It's similar in a way to a panic attack, but in a panic attack, you're more like you don't have control and your thoughts are racing and you're agitated. Whereas the freeze is more like you're paralyzed with fear. So some people react with panic, other people react with freeze. And both of those can be very, very powerful. So when you're thinking about anxiety about climate change, you want to be thinking about, do I suffer from anxiety generally? Is anxiety something that's going on in my body and my brain? And climate change is just one more thing that's making me more anxious. And a lot of people are anxious generally. So a lot of people have anxious thoughts. Those anxious thoughts might be around money. You know, we're in a recession now. There's a lot of people who don't have enough money. So it could be finance. It could be relationships. Maybe you don't feel secure in your relationships, or you don't have a relationship with someone that you'd like to have one. And then it could be anxiety about the big things. You know, where are we going? What's happening to the world? What's happening to our families, our communities? You know, there's a lot of places in the world at the moment that are suffering from wars, famine, difficult circumstances. And so there are a lot of things to worry about, there is no doubt. And then climate change is another one on top of that. So number 1 is, are you feeling anxious generally? Do you have a lot of things to worry about? And secondly is, do you have anxiety, or the patterns of the way that you react to anxiety and problems? These patterns of thinking and behaving and reacting are often laid down in childhood. So there may be a pattern you've developed over the years that have come from childhood. Maybe something that makes you feel insecure. Maybe you had feelings of abandonment as a small child or a baby. Maybe you had feelings of low self-esteem, where you weren't good enough, you weren't smart enough, you weren't attractive enough, you weren't clever enough, you weren't athletic enough. All of these things can bug you now in your adult life, but they started in childhood. Because in childhood, particularly before 3 years old, we didn't really have a higher conscious developed, so we couldn't rationalise about things. Our ego wasn't very well developed, and so we couldn't rationalise a lot of the problems. We could just react. And then we formed conclusions about what was going on, whether we were at fault. Now, by the time you're 7, you're beginning to develop a bit of an ego, and a lot of people internalise a lot of concerns about things that are going on and blame themselves. So they internalise that anxiety, and these patterns of thinking are pretty well established by the time you're about 7. You know, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not attractive enough. I'm not fast enough to be able to do this. And so later on in life, when you become anxious, some of these thoughts and feelings and emotions come up again, and they drive our behaviours. So, for example, your boss may have shouted at you at work, you know, oh, that was a stupid thing to do, and that the reaction that you have is you've overreacted to it for the simple reason that somewhere in your childhood somebody has told you you're stupid, or you thought you were stupid, or you did something stupid, and that has become then a pattern of thinking. So that feeling that you had of being stupid, that emotion, is tied to a memory, and that's stored in your subconscious. And it can come up when you're anxious about something else, that those emotions, your brain is looking for the reasons why and trying to solve the problem. So it's going to be looking at all these things in the past to say, well, where does this come from? Am I stupid? Have I been here before where I've done something stupid? Yes, I have. That was way back in my childhood. And so it's confirming, oh yeah, I am stupid. So you can come up with those conclusions instead of saying, well, on occasion I do some stupid things, but I'm not stupid altogether. And so one of the things that you can do with mental health professionals is look at these patterns of thinking and behaviour that kind of dictate what we're doing now and how we react to things, and work on that to resolve those feelings, to put them in their place, and so you don't have those emotional triggers. And then the third thing we've got to look at is, how is your body actually creating anxiety? So we tend to think of anxiety as just a psychological problem. It's all about thoughts and beliefs. And a lot of the treatment, most of the treatment, is directed then at changing those thoughts and beliefs. And that's fair enough if your body is cooperating. But a lot of the time the body is unwell and it can't cooperate, can't switch off the anxiety, can't switch off the agitation and restlessness, because there's something actually wrong physically with your brain and possibly your body too. So this is where I do a lot of work with people on trying to get their body to calm down. Now, what are the reasons for that? Well, it may be that your body and your brain is depleted of the right nutrients, the good nutrients that make all your brain hormones like serotonin that keep you calm and happy. So there could be deficiencies perhaps because of your diet, or maybe your gut's not working well, you're not absorbing things particularly well. Or it could be that there's a blockage somewhere, that you're eating really healthy, you're getting lots of the nutrients that you need, but they're not being used properly. And then sometimes toxicity gets in the way of your brain working. So we're bombarded these days with a lot of toxins. So heavy metals, plastics, pesticides and fertilizers, all sorts of things can interfere with how our body and our brain works. Then you cannot balance your brain hormones because the actual cells are toxic and things are being interrupted. The normal flow of brain hormones, or what we call neurotransmitters, is blocked, and the brain isn't responding. Now, we also have in our brain, we have two common neurotransmitters, so chemicals that the brain cells use to communicate with each other. There's the glutamate, which is what excites us, and then there's the GABA, which relaxes us. So the glutamate is like, it excites us and activates our sympathetic nervous system, so the fight or flight, and the GABA calms us down, puts us into the parasympathetic, where we feel relaxed and happy, and we have rest and digest. Okay, so there are some physical reasons why our GABA might be low, and there's some other reasons why our glutamate might be high, and we're continually being activated. And this is going to continue to make you anxious, no matter how much psychological work you've done. Until you address this, you're not going to get on top of the anxiety. So there are certain things that are really good for calming down the glutamate, and one of those is CBD oil. So I use that a lot, CBD oil, so not with the THC, just the CBD part of the cannabis. Fish oil is very good at calming down the glutamate as well. Toxins, getting rid of toxins that specifically work on the glutamate system. And working on the gut as well, so calming the gut down, making sure that you've got a good variety of gut bacteria. So not just good bacteria and getting rid of bad, but the biodiversity, which is the key now to good gut health, is having lots of different kinds of good bacteria swarming in our large intestine, and keeping balance, keeping control of what's going on. And this is really what probiotics do, in that they don't actually replace the bacteria in our gut, but they're like a policeman, sort of controlling, managing all the other bacteria, keeping things in balance. So there are a lot of things that you can do to reduce your anxiety in general. And then the fourth thing is focusing on climate change itself. Now, a lot of people, particularly in the media, are portraying climate change as, well, it's already settled and we're heading down a place of no return. You know, if we don't do something right away, catastrophe is going to happen. But there are people who have other views, and people who are thinking, well, it's not as severe as these people are making out. So there's a wide variety of opinion about what's actually going on and what actually is the problem. So one of the things you can do to also calm yourself down is to read widely. So just when you hear something on the news and it sounds really catastrophic, start reading other viewpoints about this. Educate yourself about what really is going on. And because most things are more of a grey area rather than black and white, good and evil. You know, there are difficulties, yes. You know, there are climate changes happening, you know, temperatures are rising, there's a lot more weather activity. I don't think anybody can deny that. But the way that is being caused and the things that we can do, there's a lot of grey areas. There's a lot of wiggle room to manage these things. And the other thing about the media is we only ever hear about the bad stuff. We never hear about all the great things that a lot of people are doing to address the issues of climate change. There are many people who are researching on alternative energies, on clean energies, on renewable energies, and reducing pollution, and all sorts of activities, but you hardly ever hear about those because they're not clickbait. They're not the sort of thing that people click on. You know, we click on the horrific stuff, and so the media will keep giving us horrific stuff because we keep clicking on it. So then that final thing you can do is switch off the media. Stop listening to the news, turn off your internet feeds, give yourself a digital detox, and just go out into nature and see how wonderful it is and how it is still surviving. You know, the trees are still there, the ocean's still there, the birds are still tweeting. You know, there's a lot of good stuff happening as well as some of this bad stuff. And you have to keep reminding yourself. And that is why, you know, focusing on the present. What is my state right now? What is the state of the earth right now? That can help calm you down. And living in a place where you're surrounded by nature is really helpful. So we're lucky enough to live in this beautiful environment. We're up in the canopy of the trees here. There's beautiful bird life 24/7. So I can connect with nature anytime I want. I don't have to get in the car and go anywhere. I just need to sit in my kitchen, or I can just go outside in the garden. So I'm very, very lucky in that respect. But you can arrange your life to be connected to nature too. Even if you live in a city, you can bring contact with nature into your daily life, either by growing some plants at home, having a pet, trips to a park, or trips out into the countryside whenever it's available. So you can see firsthand for yourself. So that digital detox is so important to get you away from all this horrific negativity that we're constantly being bombarded with. So try and find the positive. Who's doing great things? What companies are doing research? What companies are having success? What groups are there? Perhaps even joining a group that are doing positive things, like picking up trash, rescuing marine life, animal sanctuaries. There's lots of stuff that you can do as an individual so that you don't feel this powerless panic or powerlessness where there's nothing that you can do. There are lots of things you can do, and taking action, doing something often makes you feel calmer as well. So after you've stopped listening to this, turn off the computer, turn off your phone, get out into nature, and think about ways in which you can help the climate yourself. Educate yourself about what's going on, what are the good things as well as the bad, where can those things come together and we can make a difference. And then finally, pat yourself on the back for taking action in all these ways to look after yourself so that you can help the climate. You can be involved in making the world a better place.